Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. The living room was quiet, save for the occasional patter of rain against the windows. I sat alone, my hands trembling as they hovered over the keyboard. My mind replayed the countless moments of betrayal, each one sharper than the last. Amy and Josh's affair had unraveled everything I thought I knew about our lives. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. The email I was drafting was a damning testament to their deceit. I had compiled everything: explicit photos, text messages, and detailed accounts of their secret meetings. I knew it would ruin them both, but at that moment, I felt it was the only way to make them face the consequences. Just then, Amy walked in, her eyes tired from the weight of the day. She stopped when she saw the look on my face. "Ben, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice cautious but tinged with a hint of defensiveness. I looked at her, struggling to keep my composure. "I'm sending an email. To everyone we know." Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" I turned back to the screen, my finger hovering over the send button. "I'm letting everyone know about your affair with Josh. It's time they knew the truth." Amy's eyes widened in panic. "Ben, please. Don't. This isn't the answer. This is the only way they'll understand what you've done," I said, my voice cold. "Maybe then you'll both realize how far-reaching your betrayal was." Amy's hand flew to her mouth. "You're going to destroy everything. I know I messed up, but this isn't the way." I hesitated, torn between the desire for retribution and the faint glimmer of empathy I still felt for her. "It's too late for that," I said finally, my voice steely. "I've made my decision." With that, I pressed send. The email was on its way, carrying with it a devastating revelation that would ripple through our lives. Later that evening, the phone buzzed incessantly. Texts and calls from friends and family poured in, their messages a mix of shock, anger, and sympathy. I answered a call from my brother, Mark, his voice strained with concern. "Ben, what the hell? Why did you do this?" Mark's voice cracked. "I needed them to face the consequences," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I couldn't let them get away with it." "You're going to regret this," Mark warned. "You've set off a chain reaction that's going to hurt a lot of people." I hung up the phone, the weight of his words sinking in. The satisfaction of exposing Amy and Josh was overshadowed by a growing sense of dread about the fallout. Amy sat on the edge of the couch, her face buried in her hands. She sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking with each breath. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, almost to herself. "I never meant for any of this to happen." I didn't know how to comfort her, nor did I feel I had the right. The images and messages I had sent out were already reaching our friends and family, and there was no turning back. The storm I had unleashed was now beyond my control, and the consequences were only just beginning to unfold. The next morning, the news had spread. Josh's office was buzzing with whispers and tense conversations. The HR department had already suspended him pending an internal investigation, a decision that Josh knew was inevitable but still hit him like a ton of bricks. Sunny had been up all night, her mind racing through the chaos of the previous day. She couldn't believe the extent of Josh's betrayal. As she walked into their bedroom, Josh was sitting on the edge of the bed, his face buried in his hands. "Josh, we need to talk," Sunny said, her voice steady but filled with pain. Josh looked up, his eyes red and hollow. "Sunny, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." Sunny's expression hardened. "You're sorry? Do you even understand what you've done? This isn't just about you losing your job. It's about our family, our children. You've shattered everything." Josh tried to reach out to her, but Sunny pulled away. "I'm trying to fix things," he said desperately. "I'll do whatever it takes." Sunny shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You can't fix this. Not now. Not ever. You've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. I need to think about what's best for me and the kids." Josh's shoulders slumped in defeat. "Sunny, please. Don't do this. She turned to leave, her resolve unshaken. I have to. I need to protect myself and our children from the mess you've made. I'll be moving out today. Later that day, Sunny packed her belongings with a cold efficiency. The sound of her children's laughter from the other room contrasted sharply with the somber mood of the departure. Josh stood by the door, watching helplessly as Sunny loaded the last of their things into the car. "Mommy, where are we going?" asked their young daughter, clutching a stuffed animal. Sunny knelt down, forcing a reassuring smile. "We're going to stay with Grandma for a while, sweetheart. It's going to be okay." As she finished packing, Josh approached her one last time. "Sunny, is there any chance we can work this out?" Sunny looked at him with a mixture of sadness and anger. "I don't know, Josh. You've hurt us too much. I need time to figure out what's next for me and the kids." Josh watched as Sunny drove away, the weight of his actions settling heavily on his shoulders. The house felt emptier than ever, echoing with the silence of his choices. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and financial struggles for Josh. He sought therapy, trying to understand why he had succumbed to such reckless behavior, but the process was slow and painful. One evening, he received a call from his old friend, David. "Josh, I've been hearing about what's been happening. How are you holding up?" Josh sighed heavily. "I'm not sure. Everything's falling apart, and I'm trying to piece it back together, but it feels like there's always another piece missing." David's voice softened. "It's going to be tough, but you need to focus on what you can control. Rebuilding trust will take time, but it starts with you making the right choices moving forward." Josh nodded, even though David couldn't see him. "Thanks, David. I appreciate the advice." As he hung up the phone, Josh looked around his empty house, the stark reality of his situation settling in. He knew that repairing the damage he had caused was a monumental task, but for the sake of his children and his own peace of mind, he had to try. The days following the exposure of the affair were a blur for Amy. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a deep, gnawing regret that colored every aspect of her life. The emotional weight of the scandal and the dissolution of her marriage left her feeling hollow and adrift. Amy spent most of her days in the small apartment she had rented after the divorce. The space was sparsely decorated, a stark contrast to the warm home she had once shared with Ben. The reality of her choices was beginning to sink in, and the loneliness was almost unbearable. One evening, Amy sat at her kitchen table, staring at a photograph of her family before everything fell apart. Her new husband, Mark, whom she had met during her therapy sessions, noticed her sadness as he walked into the room. "Hey, Amy, you've been quiet all day," Mark said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What's on your mind?" Amy looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and guilt. "I keep thinking about what I lost. I had a good life, a family, and I threw it all away." Mark sat down across from her, his expression sympathetic. "It's natural to feel that way. You're going through a lot of pain right now. But remember, you're also starting a new chapter. It's okay to grieve what's past, but don't forget to give yourself a chance to heal and move forward." Amy nodded, but the words did little to ease the turmoil inside her. "I know you're right. It's just hard to let go of the guilt." Mark squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It takes time. And you don't have to do it alone. We can work through this together." Months passed, and Amy began to slowly rebuild her life. The transition was far from smooth, there were moments of doubt and fear, but she found solace in her growing relationship with Mark. They married after a year, and the new beginning brought her a sense of stability. One afternoon, Amy sat with her best friend, Julia, at a cozy cafe. Julia had been a pillar of support throughout Amy's turbulent journey. Over coffee, they talked about the past and the future. "I can't believe how much has changed in the last year," Julia said, stirring her coffee. "You've come a long way," Amy sighed. "I have. But I can't help but think about how different things might have been if I'd made better choices." Julia looked at her with empathy. "Regret is part of the healing process, but it doesn't define who you are now. You're building a new life, and that's something to be proud of. Amy took a deep breath, nodding slowly. You're right. I'm working on forgiving myself and focusing on what's ahead. Julia smiled warmly. And you're doing great. Remember, everyone makes mistakes. It's how you move forward that really matters. As they finished their coffee and parted ways, Amy felt a renewed sense of hope. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she was learning to embrace it, one step at a time. The regret would always be a part of her past, but it didn't have to dictate her future. The weeks following his separation from Sunny were a painful and tumultuous period for Josh. The financial strain of maintaining two households, combined with the emotional burden of his actions, made each day a struggle. His efforts to reconcile with Sunny and rebuild his life felt like an uphill battle, fraught with setbacks and lingering tension. Josh was at his kitchen table, working through a stack of bills, when he received a call from his therapist, Dr. Adams. Josh had been attending sessions to address the underlying issues that led to his affair. "Josh, how have you been since our last session?" Dr. Adams's voice was calm but probing. Josh ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of exhaustion. "Honestly, I'm struggling. It's hard to see any way out of this mess. Sunny's moved on, and I'm left trying to make sense of everything." Dr. Adams's tone was empathetic. Rebuilding after such a significant betrayal is never easy. It's important to focus on what you can control, your own actions and decisions. "Have you been able to make any progress in repairing your relationship with Sunny?" Josh sighed heavily. "I've tried. We've had a few conversations, but they always end up being tense. She's so hurt and angry that it feels like I'm just making things worse." Dr. Adams's voice softened. "It's understandable that reconciliation would be difficult. The key is to be patient and consistent. Healing takes time, and it's crucial to show genuine remorse and commitment to change." One evening, Josh went to a park to clear his mind. He saw Sunny there, sitting on a bench, watching their children play. Despite their estrangement, he felt compelled to approach her. "Sunny," he said, his voice hesitant. "Do you mind if we talk for a moment?" Sunny looked up, her expression guarded. "Josh, what is it?" "I just wanted to apologize again," Josh began. "I know I've said it before, but I'm truly sorry for everything. I realize now how deeply I hurt you and the kids." Sunny's eyes were filled with a mixture of sadness and frustration. "Josh, apologies are a start, but they don't change the past. I need to see real change from you, not just hear promises." Josh nodded, his face lined with regret. "I understand. I'm working on it, really. It's been hard, but I'm committed to making things right, even if it takes time." Sunny's expression softened slightly, though the pain was still evident. "I hope you're sincere. For the sake of our children, I hope you can find a way to prove it." As the months wore on, Josh's financial situation improved slightly, but the emotional strain remained. He found some comfort in his work, trying to focus on building a stable future. He continued attending therapy and made an effort to be present for his children, despite the lingering tension with Sunny. One afternoon, Josh met with his old friend, David, at a local diner. David had been a steady source of support throughout Josh's ordeal. "How are things going?" David asked as they settled into their seats. Josh shrugged, a weary smile on his face. "Better, I guess. I'm trying to keep my head above water, but it feels like every step forward is followed by 2 steps back." David nodded sympathetically. "Rebuilding takes time. It's a long process, but you're making progress. Just remember, the fact that you're trying is important." Josh looked out the window, feeling a flicker of hope amidst his struggles. "I hope so. I want to be better, for myself and for my kids." David clapped him on the back. "You're on the right path. Keep going, and don't lose sight of the progress you're making." As they parted ways, Josh took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of determination. The road to redemption was long and fraught with challenges, but he was committed to seeing it through. Despite the ongoing struggles, he was learning to accept the journey, knowing that each step forward, however small, was a step toward healing and rebuilding.